were the three Magi kings who journeyed to meet the Messiah in Judea? Well, they were very knowledgeable. They came from three different areas. It's said that they were from the three different human races: Caucasian, Asian, and African. And their names were Balthazar. The Bible refers to them as the three wise men or the three kings. In the Gospel of Matthew, they're mentioned, distinguished foreigners who visited Jesus after his birth, bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Their religious figures in tradition accounts for the nativity celebrations of Christmas and are an important part of the Christmas tradition. They symbolize the world in that they were not Hebrews. They did not know of the prophecies, but they followed what they believed in, astrology. So God used what they knew to bring them to meet the Messiah of the world. Matthew is the only one of the four canonical Gospels to mention the Magi. Matthew reports that they came from the east to worship the King of the Jews. The Gospel never mentions the number of Magi, but most Western Christian denominations have traditionally assumed them to have been three in number, based on the number of gifts brought to them, 3. These gifts, from what I know, are found in the holy monastery of Vatopedi in the holy peninsula of Mount Athos in Greece, whereas the relics of the three kings are found in Cologne, Germany. In Eastern Christianity, especially the Syriac churches, the Magi often number 12. That's the first time I've ever heard of that. I'm referring to Wikipedia. Their identification as kings in later Christian writings is probably linked to Psalm 72:11. May all kings fall down before him. The biblical account, traditional nativity scenes depict 3 wise men visiting the infant Jesus on the night of his birth. Of course, before he was born, they assumed from their astrological calculations that a very great birth would take place. And as is believed from Christian orthodoxy, the star was actually an angel that appeared and then disappeared so that they would go to Herod to tell him of the Messiah being born. And then it reappeared and stood over the place where Jesus lay in Bethlehem over the stable. Now, and we've had many accounts of angels being stars guiding people and protecting people. Now, the wise men visiting the infant Jesus on the night of his birth in a manger, accompanied by the shepherds and the angels. But this should be understood as artistic convention, allowing 2 separate scenes of the adoration of the shepherds on the birth night, and later the adoration of the Magi to be combined for convenience. The single biblical account in Matthew simply presents an event at an unspecified point after Christ's birth in which an unnumbered party of unnamed wise men, Magi in Greek, visited him in a house, not a stable, with only his mother mentioned as present. The New Revised Standard Version of Matthew 2:1-12 describes the vision of the Magi in this manner. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, the wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so has been written by the prophets." Quote, "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to be shepherd of my people, Israel." End quote. Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. When opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another path. The text specifies no interval between the birth and the visit, and artistic depictions and the closeness of the tradition dates of December 25th, January 6th, encourages the popular assumption that the visit took place the same winter as his birth. Later traditions varied, but with the visit taken as occurring up to 2 winters later, I don't think that's feasible, because we know that because of the Innocents massacre, they had to flee. They were warned by the Archangel Gabriel to flee, and they flee to Egypt. And we know that Jesus was there up to 3 years old. So I don't believe that they were there for the 2 years after his birth. Let's refer to that. Now, description of the Magi. They refer to the wise men as kings. The word Magi is a popular of Latin magus, borrowed from the Greek magos, as used in the original Greek text of Gospel of Matthew, Magi. Greek magos itself is derived from Old Persian magus, from the Avestan Magauno, religious castle to which Zoroaster was born. It says, so I can be heard beyond Magi. The term refers to the Persian priestly castle of the caste of Zoroastrianism. As part of their religion, these priests had paid particular attention to the stars and gained an international reputation for astrology, which was at that time highly regarded as a science. Their religious practices and use of astrology caused derivations of the term Magi to be applied to the occult in general, and led to the English term magic, although Zoroastrianism was in fact strongly opposed to sorcery. King James Version of the Bible translates the term to wise men. Same translation applied to the wise men led by Daniel of earlier Hebrew scriptures, Daniel 2:48. And the same word is given as sorcerer and sorcery when describing Elymas the sorcerer in Acts 13:6-11, and Simon Magus, considered a heretic by the early church, in Acts 8:9-13. Several translations refer to the men outright as astrologers at Matthew chapter 2, including the English Bible of 1961, Phillips New Testament Modern English, and so on. Although the Magi are commonly referred to as kings, there's nothing in the account from the Gospel of Matthew that implies that they were rulers of any kind. The identification of the Magi as kings is linked to the Old Testament prophecy that describes the Messiah being worshipped by kings in Isaiah 63, Psalm 68:29, Psalm 72:10, which reads, "Yea, all kings shall fall down before him, all nations serve him." Early readers reinterpret Matthew in light of the prophecies and elevated the Magi to kings. Their names. The New Testament does not give the names of the Magi. However, tradition and legend identify a variety of different names for them. In the Western Christian Church, they have all been regarded as saints and are commonly known as Melchior, a Persian scholar, Casper, also Gaspar, Jasper, Jaspas, Gathaspa in other versions, and Balthazar, also Balthazar, and Bethisarea, a Babylonian scholar. Encyclopedia state, according to the Western Church tradition, Balthazar is often represented as the king of Arabia, Melchior as the king of Persia, and Gaspar as the king of India. These names apparently derive from Greek manuscript, probably composed in Alexandria around 500 AD, which was translated into Latin. And another Greek document from the 8th century of presumed Irish origin, translated into Latin, continues a tradition of 3 kings with their names given additional details. One candidate for the origin of the name Caspar appears in the Acts of Thomas as Gondophares, around 47 AD. Gudafarasa, from which Caspar might derive as a corruption of Gaspar. Gondophares, or Gaspar, declared independence from Arsacids to become the first Indo-Parthian king. He was allegedly visited by Thomas the Apostle, by the way. According to Ernst Herzfeld, his name is perpetuated in the name of Afghan city Kandahar, Kaspar, Kandahar, Gandhafar, Kandahar. I didn't know that, you see. Which he said is to have founded under the name Gundopharan, Kandahar. And in contrast, that is, the city took his name. In contrast, many Syrian Christians named the Magi Gunasaf, or Hormisdas. In the Eastern churches, Ethiopian Christianity, for instance, has Hor, Kar Sudan, Basanater, and the Armenian Catholics, Kadfa, Badada Karida, and Badadilma. And also many Chinese Christians believe that one of the Magi did come from China. The countries of origin from the east, more literally from the rising of the sun, is the only information Matthew provides about the region where they came from. The Parthian Empire, centered in Persia, occupied virtually all of the land east of Judea and Syria, except for the deserts of Arabia to the southeast. Though the empire was tolerant of other religions, its dominant religion was Zoroastrianism, with its priestly magus class. Although Matthew's account does not explicitly cite the motivation for their journey, other than seeing the star in the east, which they took to be the star of a king of the Jews, the Syriac infancy gospel provides some clarity by stating explicitly that the 3rd chapter that they were pursuing a prophecy from their prophet Zoroaster. So they were in fact pursuing the Zoroaster prophecy. There is an Armenian tradition identifying the Magi of Bethlehem as Balthazar of Arabia, Melchior of Persia, and Gaspar of India. Historian John Hildesheim relates tradition in the ancient Silk Road city of Taxila, near Islamabad, Pakistan, that one of the Magi passed through the city on the way to Bethlehem. Traditional identities and the symbolism, apart from their names, the 3 Magi developed distinct characteristics in Christian tradition, so that between them they represented the 3 ages of adult man, 3 geographical locations and cultural areas, and sometimes other things. In one tradition, reflected by art, 14th century, Caspar is old, normally with white beard, and gives the gold. He is king of Tarsus, land of the merchants on the Mediterranean coast of modern Turkey, and is the first in line to kneel to Christ. Melchior is middle-aged, giving frankincense from Arabia, and Balthazar is young, very often increasingly black-skinned with myrrh from Saba, modern South Yemen. The ages were often given as 60, 40, and 20 respectively, and their geographical origins were rather variable, with Balthazar increasingly coming from Ethiopia or other parts of Africa, being represented accordingly. Balthazar's blackness had been the subject of considerable recent scholarly attention. In art, it's found mostly in northern Europe beginning the 12th century and becoming very common in the north by the 15th century. The subject of which king is which and who brought which gift is not without some variable depending on the tradition. The gift of gold is sometimes associated with Melchior, as well as in some traditions Melchior is the old man of the 3 Magi. And the gifts are explicitly identified in Matthew: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Many different theories of the meaning of the symbolism of the gifts have been brought forward, which, while gold is fairly obviously explained Frankincense, and particularly myrrh, are much more obscure. The theories generally break down into two groups. One, all three gifts are ordinary offerings and gifts given to a king, myrrh being commonly used as the anointing oil, frankincense as a perfume, and gold as a valuable. Two, the three gifts had spiritual meaning, gold as a symbol of kingship on earth, frankincense and incense as a symbol of deity, and myrrh, the embalming oil, as a symbol of death. Myrrh was used as embalming ointment and as a penitential incense in funerals and cremations until the 15th century. The holy oil tradition used in the Eastern Orthodox Church, the holy unction that is, for performing the sacraments of chrismation and unction, is traditionally scented with myrrh, and receiving either of these sacraments is commonly referred to as receiving the myrrh. The picture of the Magi of the 7th century shows the third visitor who brings myrrh with Valknut over his back, a pagan symbol referring to death. And it's been suggested by scholars that the gifts were medicinal rather than precious metal for tribute. The Christian scriptures record nothing about the biblical Magi after reporting their going back to their own countries. Matthew 2:12 uses the feminine singular noun choran, noting one country, territory, or region of origin. Two separate traditions have surfaced claiming that they were so moved by their encounter with Jesus that they either became Christians on their own or were quick to convert fully upon later encountering the apostles of Jesus, Thomas, who went to the east. The tradition claims that they were so strong in their beliefs that they were willingly embracing martyrdom. The Chronicle of Dexter, tradition gaining popularity in Spain during the 17th century, was found in a work called Chronicon of Dexter. The work was ascribed to Flavius Lucius Dexter, the Bishop of Barcelona, under Theodosius the Great, and the tradition appears in the form of a simple martyrdom reading. Quote, in Arabia, Felix, the city of Sassania, the martyrdom of the holy kings, the three Magi, Gaspar, Balthazar, and Melchior, who adored Christ, end quote, first appeared in 1610. The Chronicle of Dexter was immensely popular among the tradition it contains throughout the 17th century. The relics at Cologne, a competing tradition asserts that the biblical Magi were martyred for their faith and that their bodies were first venerated at Constantinople, Istanbul today. Hence, they were transferred to Milan in 344 AD. It's certain that when Frederick I, Holy Roman Empire, Barbarossa, imposed his authority on Milan, the relics were transferred to Cologne Cathedral, housed in the Shrine of the Three Kings, and are venerated there today. The Milanese treated the fragments of masonry from their now empty tombs as secondary relics, and these were widely distributed around the region, including southern France, accounting for the frequency of which the Magi appear on chase, reliquaries, and Limoges enamel. About 350 AD, the mother of Saint Constantine, who allowed the free religion of Christianity and set up the Byzantium Empire of the free Christian faith in Constantinople, today is Istanbul. His mother, Saint Helena, went to the Holy Land, and she was the one who discovered many artifacts there after talking to people in the traditions and the people that venerated the holy relics of Christ and the saints. St. Helena discovered the remains of the Magi, and July 24th honors their feast day, their transferal of their relics to the Cologne Cathedral in Germany after that. For many years, it was a tradition for German kings to make pilgrimage to the altar of the Magi after their coronations. So their feast day is annually July 24th. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.